And, of course, Rick Linklater talked about how he gave my films to Bruce Willis, and that woke him up, and people didn't believe it. And then Vanity Fair asked him about it, and they kind of left me out of it, but then that's where the quote came from in Vanity Fair of him saying, yeah, the people that killed Kennedy still run the government, and I'm not left or right anymore. And that's what Rick Linklater, I mean, the point is, all these people, Keanu Reeves, I didn't wake up Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was already very, very awake, but we're really good friends. But the exciting thing is when Hannah Montana starts to ask who I am, you know we're having an effect. All right, I'm going to shove about that and go back to Wayne Madsen. But Wayne, before we get into the white supremacists riddling the government, according to some of the reports some of your colleagues have been putting out, and your own research, you've written some articles on it, now coming out mainstream news as usual, you're kind of over the horizon sight. Liberty, freedom, waking up to the corporate structure, it is really exploding exponentially. Do you agree with that?
Oh, certainly. And I think, the fact is more people are now going to the Internet for their news, and they're getting off those George Orwell telescreens, the 3 24/7 cable news networks, which is they're nothing more than propaganda. And, now here in Washington, we have under construction a place called the Institute, the U.S. Institute for Peace, which is really the U.S. Institute for War. That's right out of Orwell. This is going to be the big neocon citadel here in Washington, and they're going to be talking about all kinds of, U.S. intervention in other countries. Latest one, of course, is Honduras, where it looks like our fingerprints are all over that coup.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because it's coming out, the generals, as you know, people may not, but once you talk about it, because you were in intelligence, that they were trained at School of Americas. He was going to legalize drugs. He was actually fighting the cartels. CIA doesn't let that happen because that's their main business. But getting into the racist, we saw Von Brunn. He attacks in 81 or 82 with fake dynamite and a gun. They disarm him easily. He's held for 6 years. He's then released. He's got all these weird Southern Poverty Law Center connections. They got caught running the white supremacist compound in Elohim City with McVeigh, according to FBI documents declassified. And suddenly Von Brunn, right when they're trying to pass all these hate crimes laws, and it got it passed to the House. It happened right as that vote was happening. Now going to the Senate, Von Brunn pops up, and it turns out when we were at the National Press Club interviewing you and others that some of the reporters you introduced us to, and now it's been national news, were saying Von Brunn was tied into special forces, colonels, commanders, connections of white supremacists, the good old boy roundup from 92 on 60 Minutes with the BATF and FBI selling N-word hunting licenses. Break that down.
Well, the number one person on this is a fellow by the name of John Edward Hurley, and we actually had a forum at the press club on Friday about Justice Department malfeasance and some political prosecutions, notably against Governor Siegelman of Alabama and a few other high-ranking Democrats in the southern states. But one of the things, Hurley was a longtime colleague of the White House press correspondent Sarah McClendon, who actually was more senior than Helen Thomas. She died a few years ago, but John Hurley was onto this back during Iran-Contra, where he noted that a lot of the people involved with these white supremacist Klan neo-Nazi organizations... That's
like G. Gordon Liddy with Nixon thought that he was like a German general, but go ahead.
Right. Well, he found out that many of these people were involved in Iran-Contra. They were in the Reagan administration. They were in the Bush 1 administration. More recently, they were in the George W. Bush administration. A lot of these individuals were also paid informants of the FBI, and we know that one person whose name was mentioned as a guy who worked with Von Brunn, this guy Todd Blodgett, he came right out and said he was a paid informant. But these people all were in the Bush 1 a lot of them were in the Bush 1 administration. And I remember my days at Ole Miss where my history professors, Southern history professors, were telling me back during the days of the Klan that there were so many FBI infiltrators. One FBI agent who had infiltrated the Klan would be reporting on other Klan members who turned out to also be FBI agents.
In fact, there were some meetings where there'd be 5 people and 4 of them would be FBI.
Exactly. You didn't know about the 5th. But anyway, this is a big problem, and now many of these people have glommed onto this anti-terrorism, counterterrorism thing after 9/11. But they're there. They've infiltrated. As you say, they're in many different parts of the government, both as political appointees, as we saw with under the Reagan and Bush administration, but others are senior civil service. But you have to wonder about just what is the FBI up to when they're running these people and then they commit these acts.
Well, Wayne, that's my question. Is I'm sure you remember 60 Minutes in '92, where the militia guys went in and they were hanging black people in effigy. BATF, FBI, close to 1,000, I think, at the meeting. Was it Alabama or South Carolina? In fact, pull up Good Old Boy Roundup for me. They were selling, N-word hunting licenses and all this. And I researched it more, and it's not just that the FBI and BATF and CIA are running the white supremacist groups and getting them to stage attacks and then take our rights, but they really are Nazis. So, what is going on? And then meanwhile, the ADL is like over them somehow. Very bizarre mixture of people.
Well, I have to point out, I live in Arlington, Virginia, and this is where George Lincoln Rockwell had his American Nazi Party headquarters. And here's a guy who was a commander in the Navy during World War II. Can you imagine? We lose over 600,000 people fighting the Axis in that war. This guy Rockwell is running a ladies' magazine in Manhattan, but decides all of a sudden to come to the Washington area and start the American Nazi Party. I heard from an old friend of mine, now deceased, who investigated Rockwell for Reader's Digest magazine and found out that a lot of his money was actually coming from the ADL. George Lincoln Rockwell, when he ran that magazine in New York, his biggest advertisers for U.S. Lady were Bergdorf Goodman, Macy's, Saks, Gimbel's, all these Jewish-owned department stores. Why in the world would he just then turn around, come to Washington, and start the American Nazi Party? Well, it's obvious that that he was part of this idea. We've got to keep our thing going. So we start this guy up, and we can point to him and say, look, there's still a threat. I think this has been going on for decades in this country, and the FBI is perfectly content to work with some of these people. And I think, I think it's part of this Hegelian dialectic where you have two sides playing off against one another. And in that,
well, yeah, they got to have an enemy to take the general public's liberties and freedoms and spy on us. And so every time I research Nazis, I find out they're joined to the hip with the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center and the FBI. They're just a bunch of whacked out freaks. I mean, what do you think about this hate crimes bill? I was reading the subsection and found out it's passed the House, that it has the same subsection as the other act, the cyberbullying, where it says if you criticize someone and it hurts their feelings, the feds will charge you with a felony. I mean, Wayne, it seems on every front, federal government takeover, private Federal Reserve takeover, a water bill takeover of all water in the country. I know it's just everything's happening right now.
Well, this law may not survive the Supreme Court, because I would note today the Supreme Court ruled against
Sotomayor,
Missouri. And also against Missouri, which wanted to bring a charge against this Westboro Baptist Church. This guy, where they picket the funerals of guys coming back from Iraq, guys that got killed over there. But the Supreme Court upheld the right of that Westboro, as nutty as they are. They said they had every right to picket these funerals.
Yeah, for those that don't know, the First Amendment is to protect nuts like that who are really, I think, very distasteful. But it's there for distasteful speech, not for speech you like. Go ahead.
Right. So I would say, based on the Supreme Court's ruling today, that hate crime legislation may not pass muster, because somebody obviously is going to bring suit against that if they're ever charged.